And details are what makes me a craftsman. And you a crafts boy.
Before the internet turned every behind-the-scenes tidbit into a meme in 24 hours, Home Improvement quietly built one of TV's strangest, most lovable little ecosystems. On paper, it was a suburban family sitcom about a dad who hosts a local cable show and insists against all reason on adding more power to anything with an engine. But under that noisy layer of tool gags and grunts, the series smuggled in running bits that felt almost experimental. A neighbor whose face you never fully see. A fictional tool brand that slowly becomes an in-universe mythology. A meta show within a show where stunts accidentally go wrong with a precision only a well-oiled production could manage. It was slapstick engineered like a Swiss watch, character work shaped by live audiences, and a production team that treated props and sound effects with the same care other shows reserved for heartfelt monologues. And it worked. The series didn't just rack up huge ratings, it shaped how ABC thought about family comedies in the 90s. Broad enough for kids, subversive enough for adults, and just self-aware enough to make you feel in on the joke. Today, we're digging into the oddities, the casting near misses, the on-set inventions, the little choices that made this show feel bigger than its own living room. You know the catchphrases. You remember the accidents. But the weirdest stuff is hiding in the margins, and over a certain fence. Before we start the countdown, quick favor. If you love deep dives into retro TV, hit like and subscribe. It helps more fans find these episodes, and it tells us to keep the nostalgia machine running. Alright, let's power up. 15. The face you never saw. The show's most famous running bit wasn't a stunt. It was restraint. Wilson, Tim's sage neighbor, is always seen with his face obscured. A fence slat, a hat brim, a prop at just the right angle. It began as a simple visual gag with an old Hollywood vibe and turned into a weekly puzzle the production crew had to solve creatively. The writers used the concealment to make Wilson's wisdom feel almost mythic, like advice from a friendly oracle who exists just beyond full view. Audiences leaned forward, waiting for the camera to slip up. It never did, until the goodbye. In the finale's curtain call, the cast stepped out, and at last Earl Hindman dropped the fence for a full-face bow. It wasn't a joke. It was a thank you, acknowledging a running gag that had somehow become part of the show's heart. The reveal worked because the show had earned it. Years of winks, misdirections, and carefully framed shots culminating in a single generous moment of eye contact. Once you start looking for what the show hid, you realize it also hid what almost happened. 14. Al Borland wasn't the original Al. Al feels inevitable now. Flannel, deadpan patience. I don't think so, Tim. But behind the scenes, the sidekick slot wasn't locked. Scheduling conflicts and early casting reshuffles left the part in flux until Richard Karn, then a working actor juggling commercial gigs, stepped in. Karn's grounded, unflappable energy snapped the dynamic into focus. If Tim is a hurricane, Al is the stud wall keeping the house upright. The audience immediately read the chemistry. His practical know-how and gentle skepticism gave the writers a second engine to power jokes. Explain the safe way, then let Tim do it the spectacularly unsafe way. Karn wasn't just a replacement, he was a tone setter. He allowed Tool Time to feel like an actual show people might watch locally, giving the sitcom's fake show stakes and rules. Once Al clicked, everything around him, the safety bits, the fan mail, even the merch, suddenly had a center of gravity. Casting didn't just shape the studio, it fired rockets under a different career entirely. 13. From Tool Girl to Baywatch. Before she was running along the shoreline in slow motion, Pamela Anderson was Lisa, the original Tool Time girl, spooling extension cords, presenting tools, and tossing in the occasional zing. Her stint became a springboard. The visibility, the comedic reps, and the pin-up aura crystallized into a launchpad for Baywatch superstardom. When Anderson left, Debbie Dunning stepped in as Heidi, and the dynamic subtly shifted. Heidi wasn't just a poster. She bantered with Al, wrangled props, and became part of the show's rhythm. Fans responded to her warm, no-nonsense presence, and the writers gave her moments that acknowledged the gag while letting her stand on her own. The baton pass also underlined how Home Improvement worked best. Set a pattern, then twisted. The Tool Time assistant was never just window dressing. She was a pressure valve that could puncture ego, set up a punchline, or steal the reaction shot that made a stunt twice as funny. Of course, the spotlight cuts both ways. One son simply walked off stage. 12. Why Randy vanished mid-run. Jonathan Taylor Thomas was a 90s phenomenon. Teen covers, shrieking audiences, and a precocious comedic beat. Midway through the later seasons, he stepped back. On-screen, the writers sent Randy to Costa Rica on an environmental program. Off-screen, the decision centered on education and shifting priorities. Sitcoms often struggle when a key voice exits, but Home Improvement treated it like real family life. Kids grow up, paths diverge, and the center has to hold anyway. The shift opened oxygen for Brad's storylines, let Mark's weird kid era bloom, and nudged Tim and Jill into new parenting beats. Less quippy refereeing, quieter recalibration. The show also resisted over-explaining Randy's absence, which helped it feel natural rather than melodramatic. When he reappeared for a guest spot, the nostalgia hit hard precisely because the departure had been handled with restraint. Speaking of quiet world-building, have you noticed a certain brand following Tim around? 11. Binford Tools, the fake brand that wouldn't stay fake. Binford started as a punchline, an all-purpose label to plaster on props. Then it became a mythology. Binford's logo showed up everywhere. Boxes, banners, aprons, the odd tchotchke lurking in the background. The omnipresence did two things. First, it made Tool Time feel like a legit local institution with a real sponsor. Second, it gave the audience a collectible language. Spot the Binford, post the screen grab, feel like an insider. Over time, the brand took on a life beyond the show, popping up as sly nods in later Tim Allen projects and fan culture. That feedback loop, writers seed an Easter egg, fans amplify it, production doubles down, helped Home Improvement build a shared universe vibe long before cinematic universes were a thing. Binford wasn't a product, it was a passport stamp into the show's private joke club. And that club had its own TV show, a meta playground where chaos was the point. 10. Tool Time was its own animal. Most sitcom shows within the show are quick skits. Tool Time felt like an actual half hour. The set had geography, the crew had personalities, the demonstrations had rhythms. Safety warnings, prop fumbles, and audience reactions were choreographed to read as barely contained anarchy while actually being tightly controlled. That control let the writers stage mini-plots inside the demo. Tim insists on the turbo attachment, Al calmly references the manual. A guardrail fails with clockwork timing, cut to Tim's sheepish grin and a chorus of grunts. The meta show also doubled as character therapy. It let Tim and Al process their partnership publicly, using gadgets as proxies for respect, envy, and friendship. The result was layered comedy. If the gag didn't land for you, the fake show might. If the fake show didn't, the family beat right after probably would. Of course, when you dance that close to chaos, you sometimes get singed. 9. Real bumps, real bruises. Even with meticulous planning, pratfalls have edges. Over the run, there were genuine bumps, misjudged distances, a prop with more oomph than expected, the odd scraped elbow that made it into blooper reels. Rather than dial back, the team refined protocols, better harness checks, clearer reset calls, and prop builds designed to break safely. Those bloopers did important work. They demystified the magic just enough to keep viewers invested in the next gag, showing that the comedy came from craft, not carelessness. The crew's ability to adapt also revealed a bigger truth about the show. It respected physical comedy as a discipline. A table doesn't just collapse, it collapses after a timed line, angled to camera, with debris that sells impact but never threatens anyone. When fans talk about Home Improvement's accidents, they're really praising a production that made danger feel hilarious and then went home without a hospital bill. And then there were the bits that practically begged the accelerator to stick. 8. The jet-powered everything gag. More power is a catchphrase, sure, but it's also a design brief. The writers and prop team kept topping themselves. Souped-up lawnmowers, overamped shop vacs, kitchen gadgets that behaved like small aircraft. The humor wasn't just in the explosion, it was in the escalation. The way Tim's eyes lit up as if horsepower could fix human nature. Sound design did half the lifting. The rumble, the turbine whine, the comedic whump after a puff of smoke. Visually, the builds were credible enough to make you think, if I had a weekend and a forgiving HOA. That credibility let the show satirize a very 90s American instinct. If it exists, it can be optimized. If it's optimized, it must be better. And if it fails spectacularly, that's tomorrow's segment. The strangest extension of that instinct didn't air on ABC at all. 7. The bizarre Super Nintendo game. Yes, there's an actual SNES game, Home Improvement Power Tool Pursuit, and yes, it involves dinosaurs. The plot hand-waves the premise, stolen tools, a hunt through themed worlds, enemies that look like they wandered off the universal backlot. It's gloriously odd. Tim leaps, swings power tools like swashbucklers, and navigates levels that feel like a fever dream version of Tool Time. Critics were baffled. Fans were charmed by the sheer audacity. Over time, it became a cult collectible precisely because it makes no sense. But that's the point. The game treats more power as a reality distortion field. If Tim can overclock a blender, why can't he chainsaw a T-Rex? The cartridge is a time capsule of the era, when any hit show might get a tie-in game, logic optional. It's also proof that Home Improvement's brand was big enough to survive being very, very weird. Back on TV, the real surprise was what didn't happen. A victory lap season. 6. The almost season 9 that never happened. Networks love extending a sure thing, and Home Improvement was still strong near the end. But continuing meant reshuffling pay, renegotiating schedules, and deciding whether there were new places to take the tailors that wouldn't feel like wheel spinning. The calculus landed on grace over greed. Ending while the audience still missed you was a flex, especially in the 90s when syndication money sang sweetly. The choice preserved the show's reputation. No dragged-out storylines, no remember when clip show marathons, just a clean goodbye with room for everyone to feel satisfied. Ironically, stopping early ensured the show would keep living endlessly rerun, instantly quotable and frozen in the amber of its best self. Sometimes the most powerful move is knowing when to set the wrench down. That set the table for a goodbye that pulled one last rabbit from the hat. 5. The curtain call reveal. Sitcom finales often go sentimental. This one went theatrical. After the story wraps, the cast steps out for a curtain call. Old school, communal, and perfectly tuned to a show that always felt a little like a stage comedy. And then the payoff. Earl Hindman finally drops the fence. No dialogue, no punchline, just a grin and a wave. The audience eruption says everything. For years, the Wilson gag made viewers collaborators. You knew the bit. You scanned the frame. You laughed when the hat brim won again. Letting the curtain call carry the reveal honored that collaboration. It wasn't canon. It was communion between actors, crew, and fans who'd been in on the secret since the pilot. A joke became a ritual, became a farewell. If the face reveal was the last wink, the music was the first. 4. The theme you can't unhear. You can hum it right now. Percussive clanks, sampled grunts, a groove that sounds like a toolbox learning to dance. The title sequence stitched together the show's DNA, DIY iconography, hand-drawn schematics, and Tim's guttural punctuation into a brand you could recognize with your eyes closed. It's clever sound literacy. The score primes you to expect mechanical mayhem and punch-in timing. The visuals match the music's playfulness, hiding little jokes in blueprints and animations that reward rewatching. Most sitcom themes fade into wallpaper. This one became part of the language. Even the grunt, originally an ad-libbed flourish, is woven into the arrangement like a percussion instrument. By the time Tim walks on set for the cold open, your brain is already giggling. And speaking of ad-libs, some of the best laughs were never on the page. 3. Improv on set, grunts included. Tim Allen's stage roots meant he played with sound and timing in the moment. Those spontaneous grunts and off-the-cuff tags weren't just garnish, they shaped the scripts. Writers learned to leave space for the unexpected, sometimes framing a bit precisely so a fresh grunt, a sidelong glance, or a muttered uh-huh could land like a second punchline. The audience rewarded it with laughter, arrives differently when they sense discovery. That improvisational energy bled into the ensemble. Karn's micro-reactions, Jill's surgical side-eye, even the boys' one-upmanship picked up a jazz-like call-and-response flow. The alchemy isn't chaos, it's trust. Trust the actor to find the beat. Trust the editor to catch the best take. Trust the audience to feel the difference between a line read and a moment that just happened. No surprise then that Al, originally the straight man, grew into a phenomenon. 2. How Al outgrew sidekick status. At first glance, Al is there to say, "I don't think so, Tim. Hold a manual, and keep the OSHA angels happy." But audiences loved him. His sincerity, craft pride, and soft-spoken competence gave the show a second hero archetype. The guy who knows how to do it right and doesn't need a spotlight to prove it. The writers leaned in, giving Al hobbies, awkward romances, and a gently escalating war with gratuitous power. He also became a merch magnet, flannel jokes, beard nods. The whole measure twice ethos turned into quotable culture. The more fans embraced him, the more the show allowed him real wins, projects finished without fireballs, jokes that turned on Tim for once, and a friendship that read as genuine partnership rather than perpetual exasperation. By the end, Al wasn't a foil. He was the show's conscience on two sturdy legs. Put it all together, and you get a series that rewired ABC's 90s comedy playbook. 1. The Tuesday night juggernaut effect. Home Improvement didn't just ride the 90s sitcom wave, it helped shape it. Anchoring ABC's schedule for years, the show proved you could blend broad family appeal with meta humor and still land in the Nielsen stratosphere. It cross-pollinated with other ABC comedies through promos, guest drops, and shared audiences, and it gave the network a blueprint: build around a charismatic lead, invest in a high-concept visual bit like Tool Time, and surround it with an ensemble that can both enable and puncture the star. The result was a ratings engine that stabilized Tuesday nights and fed syndication pipelines for a generation. The legacy isn't just catchphrases, it's a template. One that later family comedies, including other Tim Allen vehicles, echoed in tone, pace, and that warm, industrious sense that laughter should be a team effort. Conclusion. Looking back, Home Improvement feels like a magic trick made of plywood and elbow grease. It took familiar sitcom parts, marriage spats, sibling rivalries, recurring gags, and bolted them onto a meta chassis powered by Tool Time. In that space, the show could be outrageous without cruelty, heartfelt without sap, and smart without smirking. The weirdest decisions, the hidden neighbor, the omnipresent fake brand, the theatrical finale, weren't just flourishes, they were signals that the creators trusted us to play along. We weren't just laughing at another sputtering lawnmower, we were in on the ritual of escalation, waiting for the puff of smoke and the bashful grin. And maybe that's why the series endures in reruns and memory. It celebrates the tinkerer's faith that problems can be solved, that a little more power might help, and that when it doesn't, you can still fix the mess with friends who show up and hold the ladder. In a television landscape that often chases novelty by tearing things down, Home Improvement built something: a workplace, a family, a neighborhood, a fake brand you could believe in, and a fence that somehow made us feel closer. If this brought back good memories, or taught you something new about an old favorite, tap like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell. We've got plenty more 90s deep dives coming, and trust us, we're just getting warmed up. More power,